So welcome to Heart Work. Raven Hart is an Anishinaabe member of the White Earth Band in Chippewa. She's a facilitator in grief and loss coaching. She's an action therapist, a facilitator in life skills, and in traditional family parenting. She's a mom of four and a cuckoo and an auntie, and from the Bear Clan. She's got 28 years working, which I think you started when you were 3 years old then, because you're not looking this old here. But 20 years of work, 8 years of working with inner city youth and folks that need a lot of help. And Ivana Yellowback is from the Montosippi Cree Nation and Matthias Kalam Cree Nation. She's got her BA and is currently doing her BSW. Welcome to the profession. 9 years experience with youth and in social services work, and is also a traditional family parenting facilitator and an Indigenous life skills coach. So folks, welcome and thanks for joining us today. I'll let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you. Dansen Wagamaganok, Ivana Yellowback Nidisne Asan, Mantu CPA Pagawaganaga Winnipeg Nuoschi, Asiniskawi the New Muskego Inunoswell Nina. Hello, everybody. My name is Ivana, and I'll just pass it over to Raven to do her introductions.
Bujuna Denawe Maganatuk, Wapche, Canoe Kwe, Nadijnakas, Shigo, Ogichidakwe, Nadijnakas, Makwa, Dodim, Gawaba, Kanikag, Dunji, Shigo, Nisachawasik, Dunji. I'm also from Nisachawasik Cree Nation. I'm Cree and Chippewa. So I just wanted to acknowledge, I don't know where that little part went, but it was supposed to be in there. I'm really, really happy to be with you all today and joining you from beautiful Falcon Lake. And I'm really looking forward to today's presentation and spending some really good time with you all. It's going to be a short time, but it'll be, you know, full of like knowledge and wisdom and some goodness today. So I just wanted to let you know that I lit a smudge.
Yeah.
I lit some sage, and I have a little bit of sage in here, and then I sprinkle a little bit of lavender on. And it helps with, you know, kind of our nerves, and it helps with relaxing us. And that beautiful sage was picked by the youth that I get to spend time with. So I just want to acknowledge all the youth out there that we love so much. And I have one with me today, and she's sitting here listening. So I'm really happy to be here with all of you.
Awesome. So I'm going to start sharing my screen here. You guys can see that? Okay. I know that's like one of the questions we always have to ask when we're sharing. All right, so we're called Miteh Atôskê. Miteh Atôskê means heart work, or to work from the heart. And we have this PowerPoint presentation called Mikiwap, which is the teaching lodge. And a Mikiwap is what is known as a teepee. The teepee is a Dakota word. Mikiwap is within our language, and Mikiwap basically means from the beginning, from the source. And what that represents is the Mikiwap, which is a teepee. A lot of people know it as teepee, and in Animoan we call it Mikiwap. What that Mikiwap represents is that birthing ceremony. And that ceremony that we all take as human beings, Anishinaabe, Inanu, which means a human being, coming in from the spirit worlds through that birthing process and then being here as a human being. So we like to call it a teaching lodge because traditionally this would be our first teaching lodge when we're children. And the first lodge obviously is, you know, when you're in the womb, right? That's like our first teaching lodge, is when we are in our mother's womb. And from there, we start to, you know, hear things, we start to experience things, taste things. And then as soon as we're done that birthing ceremony and process, we have the moss bag, and then our Mikiwap, which is our home fire. And that's our first teaching lodge that we have as children, as nations, as human beings, is our home and our home environment and our home fires. So we like to start off each time we do any type of ceremony. For us, education is ceremony. because traditionally we would be learning these things within a teaching lodge, or we would be learning these things within a mikiwak. A lot of these teachings and a lot of this information would be shared to us by our mothers, our aunties, our grandmothers, our older cousins, and the women within our nations. We're the ones that hold the stories. We're the ones that give the nation to our babies. So our our bloodlines are matrilineal, meaning that the nation comes from the mother. So as a Cree woman, Ojibwe woman, our babies, when they're born, we're the ones that are responsible for that teaching of who they are, the language, the stories, how to be a good and healthy relative to other relatives and to other beings. So part of the teaching is we like to go back to the beginning. And when we talk about the beginning, we talk about the beginning before trauma. We talk about the very, very beginning in spirit, Achak, like to the beginning when Gise Manitu, creator, was creating everything, Misawa, all that is. And the sound that represents that beginning is the sisiguan, which is the rattle. So I have a sisiguan here. And I don't know, if Raven, do you want me to sing a song or I can sing a song?
Yeah, I'm just grabbing my rattle.
Awesome. So I have a sisiguan here. And in Cree, the word for sisiguan, it's very similar in the Anishinaabe in Ojibwe, it's called shishiguan. Where we're sister languages, so a lot of our words are very similar in Anishinaabe and in Inimawin, which is Ojibwe and Cree language. So the sisiguan here, the one that me and Raven have here, what the sound, that sound there represents creation. It represents the beginning. And our elder, our Sundance chief, Wilford Buck, he's from Opasqueyak Cree Nation. He talks about how when you sit somewhere by the water, especially when the ice is just breaking up, when it's like everything starts to melt, the ice starts to crack, the water is, starting to push all of the ice all over on the lake. He said, if you sit by a body of water where it's quiet, you'll hear the sound. And what that is the ice particles and the molecules underneath inside the ice and the water bouncing up and down. And that sound is a very sacred sound. It tells Mother Earth, it tells the plants and the animals, it tells everything in natural law that it's time to wake up now, that it's springtime, Sigwan, that it's a new season, it's a new life. So, and another elder that we sing with, because my cousin Raven and I were both singers, my nieces as well, Raven's daughters, which we'll show a picture right away. We're a family of singers, so we get invited to conferences, we get invited to different gatherings, and to do open songs, to do closing songs. And Winston Whitney, who's a very well-known Indigenous artist, he told Raven and I last fall, he said, whenever you sound the sisiguan, the rattle, everything becomes sacred. So before we start off in regards to any type of teachings, we like to sing a song just to start off that portion of that ceremony, and then going into that spirit and intent of that education that follows after that. So we'll start off with a song. Do you want me to sing or?
If you want, we could just take a push-up each.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
You want to do Layuha? Okay. So I'll start off. So my throat is a little bit what have you. I got sick last week, so my throat is still in recovery, but other than that, it's good. So I'm going to shake my rattle 4 times. And whenever we sound our, spiritual instruments and, any type of capacity and ceremony during powwows, during openings, we always sound them 4 times. And what that does is it acknowledges the 4 directions, and it lets the spirits, like our ancestors, our spirit helpers, it lets all those that take care of us and love us in that spirit world know that we're doing a ceremony of some sort. So when we shake it 4 times, they know right away, okay, my grandchild is doing something over there. My grandchild is engaging in a prayer or a ceremony of some sort. So I'm going to go check it out. And then when we do that, that's when they come in and they bear witness to what is going on. So Raven and I always say that even the stuff that is not said, whatever it is that we're thinking, whatever it is that we're experiencing in our life during this time, you know, spirit will know. And through that way, when we're singing, Raven always says it's like praying twice, because as a singer, you're singing a prayer song, and at the same time, you're also praying. But not only that, when you're singing the prayer song, other people are praying alongside with you. So we'll start off with that song.
I just wanted to share that whenever we start any kind of workshops or programming, we always start with ceremony, and that's the way that we were taught to do things. I also wanted to share, while Ivana was talking, I was thinking about, you know, why we're all here today, and some of the work that you're all doing, and, you know, that it comes that it's about attachment. And when she was talking about the beginning, and the beginning before trauma. And one of the things that I really love about learning is how, Ivana was talking, a couple weeks back about how, how they have the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how in that hierarchy, there's, those basic needs, and then, physiological and all the way up. And she was talking about how Indigenous children are born self-actualizing, that when you teach an Indigenous child our creation stories, from that, they learn where we come from. And when you teach them their name, their spirit name, they learn who they are. And then when you teach them about their clan, they learn that their gift and responsibility. So they're already born self-actualizing. And one of the things that really stood out to me in our birthing practices is the fact that birthing practice has a lot to do with attachment, and not just attachment to mom and dad or, cook 'em and mush 'em, but also to the land, right? And we don't do a lot of our birthing practices, which are usually done right in the home and community anymore. A lot of our moms are flown to hospitals, and, they have their babies in hospitals. And then with that afterbirth, what we would do with that afterbirth is we would take that afterbirth and we would bury it somewhere close to home, where they would, or we would bury it somewhere in nature where we would want that child to be like. So maybe by a beaver dam, because we want that baby to have a really good home and upbringing. Or we would, bury it by an anthill, because we want that baby to work really hard and to be, a team player, to be a really beautiful part of that community. And again, that belly button, there's many different belly button teachings, but one of the most important ones was, I learned that we would take that belly button, and either that baby would carry that belly button close to mom, whether it was attached on something like a teddy bear in a little medicine pouch, or they would bury that belly button close to mom or grandma's house, right? Maybe by the steps, so that little one would always know where home was, so that they would always be attached to their family and to the land that they come from. And, I was thinking about that when she was talking about the beginning, and a lot of our little ones are wandering around in this world, and they don't know where they belong or who they belong to, or, where they come from. And I was just thinking about that when we go back to the beginning, we have to do better in that sense of those birthing practices and those rites of passages that belong to our children and our little ones. So I just wanted to share that little bit before we move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yes, totally. Yeah, so this is just talking about what it is that we went through. So praying twice, the usage of song, smudging, we opened up with a smudge earlier, and then gratitude. So Ed Ager, who is an elder from Nisitchawasik, he said that Creator only wants us to be two things. And Raven always brings this up, which is to be happy and to be thankful. And we also have this one part here called the pipe ceremony, which is the ospogen. It is how we say it in the language, ospogen. And usually in any type of longer programs that we do, because Raven and I, we do life skills programming. We work with moms right now currently who have their children involved in CFS. And and we also do life skills traditional programming with young women who are involved in CFS or justice involvement. And so anytime we start any of those programs that go longer, we always start off with ceremony, and we always bring in the pipes. And that pipe is like, and in the language we call it ospogen, but what that means in English is a support that you lean on, a helper that helps you to stand up. So our people have always had ways of doing things carefully, ways of doing things that everything means something. So we would usually start off with a pipe ceremony before we start any of our longer programs. We have 2 going on right now. One of them is called the Mikiwap, which is a 15-week life skills program with grief and loss and traditional family parenting. We also have ceremony as part of that in terms of those modes of healing. And then we also have a 7-week program that's actually surrounded by the 7 pipe laws, which we're going to go through today. And we run that program with young women, 2 spirit relatives, as a part of a leadership and wellness empowerment program. So this is what I was talking about earlier. You know, we come from a family of singers. There's Raven here on the right, Skyla, Caitlin, and myself. And we always, we try to, in the beginning of programming, we try to do gratitude, like introductions and gratitude, but we won't be able to do that today. So what we usually try to do is we try to get relatives to sound their voice. And sometimes it's a little bit nerve-wracking, like a lot of, sometimes relatives don't really are comfortable in sharing or talking, especially in public. But we always encourage the sounding of your voice because you are the greatest advocate. You know, the greatest advocate is yourself. So this is just a little bit introduction of our family and how we do this work together. Not only are we facilitators, you know, social workers, social services workers, aunties, community supports, etc. We're also singers. And we also are song carriers. So we like to utilize, you know, song and everything that we do, sharing your voice and everything that we do to encourage and have that empowerment to become your greatest advocate. And then we'll get started with pipe laws.
I keep muting just because
Yeah.
I get here. Okay, so the 7 pipe laws are guiding principles of how we govern ourselves, where the 7 teachings are how we govern ourselves as a community. These pipe laws are basically the principles that I would live by as a human being every day. And they call them the 7 pipe laws, but at one time, our people, we all had pipes. Like it wasn't just an elder or, you know, a knowledge keeper or a special person that had a pipe. All of our people had pipes because we all are deserving of praying and talking to Creator. And Ivana always says that our pipe is like a direct phone call to Creator. It's like a phone. And I really like that because when I talk to youth and I teach them about how to pray, I tell them like, you're just like, it's like being on the phone. Like you just talk to Creator the way that you would talk to me or any of your relatives. And these pipe laws are so foundational. And these are 7, but there's like over 50 laws that we have as Indigenous people. And everybody knows about the 7 teachings, but there's very few people that know about these laws, these pipe laws. And we were really lucky to learn from these pipe laws from one of our mentors and aunties, Sylvia McAdam Swainson. And she basically, we talked to her and said, hey, we really love like these teachings that you're teaching and they're so beautiful, and how, you know, what can we do to share them with the youth that we work with and that we get to spend time with? And she said, it was so beautiful because what she said was, you know, Raven, like, I just wanted you to know that your mom was one of my teachers. So of course you can share this knowledge and these teachings because, you know, she was one of my teachers. And I was like, wow, that's so beautiful because it like came full circle because my mom's in the spirit world now. And I was just like, that's so beautiful. So my mom was her teacher and she was our teacher. So it's just beautiful how that works. But with these laws, they're so foundational that we're taught to memorize them. Health, happiness, generosity, compassion, respect, and quietness. And they say that when you forget 1 or 2 of them, those are the ones that you need to work on the most, right? So I'll take you through the pipe laws. And how I understand health is that really beautiful medicine wheel symbol that we have in our community. And in that medicine wheel, there's thousands of teachings. Like there's teachings on the 4 seasons, on the 4 races of people, on, the cycle of our growth as human beings from like child or infant to child, youth, and adult to elder. Like there's so many teachings in there. And the way that I understand that first teaching of health is taking care of my medicine wheel, because within me is a medicine wheel. And within my medicine wheel, there's 4 aspects of my human being. And those 4 aspects are my emotional self, my mental self, my spiritual self, and my physical self. But what does that really mean, right? So when I think about my emotional self, I know that every day I need to give and receive love, every day. And so when I go to bed at night, I check my emotional self. Did I give and receive love today? Yes, I did a lot of that today. Already, it's only like lunchtime, right? And then my mental self is every day I need to learn something new because of the trauma and oppression that we've experienced, the colonization of our people, living in a capitalistic world. There's been a lot of harm done to our minds. And in a lot of ways, sometimes we don't think that we're good enough or that we're worthy of love or good things in our life because we've been taught to believe that in ourselves. And so how do I fix that within my own mind? And because there's a lot of things in our mind that tell us these things. And one of the ways that I've learned how to do that is by learning and putting beautiful things into my mind. And learning beautiful things that fascinate me and that inspire me. And so I do a lot of that, whether it's watching documentaries or docudramas, reading, education, all of that good stuff. So I have to feed my mind something new every day, something beautiful. And when I do that, I clear space. I clear space in my mind for more good things. And when I do that, I create new pathways in my brain. And I'm not reinforcing those unhealthy ones that tell me, those not so good things about myself. And when I do that, I'm actually healing my brain from trauma and I'm healing my brain from oppression. So every day I learn something new. And I always tell people I'm fascinated about aliens because I know that in our culture and our way of life, we're related to everything, the plants, the animals, Mother Earth, the elements, the stars, the moon, everything. And so I always expand that out into the universe. And I have relatives out there. My people tell me that we come from the stars. Our elders tell us that we come from the stars, that our people do not follow that theory of evolution because they only found one monkey in North America, right? And so, I really work on building my mind and making sure that I'm learning really good things every day. Every day we need to do this. And then the next one in my medicine wheel is the spirit. How do I feed my spirit every day? Well, I do a lot of mindfulness. I wake up every day and I do my gratitudes, everything that I'm grateful for, because like Ivana said, one of our elders taught us that Creator only wants us to be 2 things, happy and thankful. So every day I do my gratitudes, and that's like a prayer in itself, right? And I have a smudge, right? Sometimes I smoke my pipe, sometimes I sing, whatever I need to do to feed my spirit. I start my day taking really good care of my spirit and protecting it. And then the physical part of my medicine wheel is so important, making sure that I have enough sleep at night, because our brains are always going. So I make sure that I have a really good sleep at night, because when I don't sleep, my mental health is off. And then I also make sure that I drink water, because water is medicine. We're made up of 70% water. And the same water that birthed me, birthed my mom and my grandma and grandpa and all the way back, all my ancestors. And it's going to birth, my unborn grandchildren and great grandchildren and all the way like that. And that water, it knows us. It's alive. It has a spirit. It knows us, and it knew all of our ancestors. And Ivana says always, all the way back to the dinosaurs. Never in the history of Mother Earth has the sky opened up and a brand new body of water fallen into Mother Earth. That water is recycled up through evaporation, condensation, all of that stuff. So that water is very much alive and it knows us. It has wisdom, it has spirit, it has knowledge. And so every day I have to drink water and drink that medicine and fill my body with really good, beautiful water medicine. And that helps to detox, hey, that helps to let go of the things that we, that we take in from the environment, the things that we take in from other relatives, sometimes not so healthy things. So I always take really good care of my water. And when I do that, like, I also think about the experiments that were done with water and how water can transform into, kind of fall apart if it's talked to in a really negative way, or it can crystallize into beautiful snowflakes if it's prayed for or thanked, right? So I think about that water and I think about the water within me. So I'm going to be loving and kind, and I'm going to think really good thoughts about myself. And I'm going to be really kind when I speak about myself. But then I'm going to transfer that on to everyone else that I come across. And I'm going to be very loving and kind to them too, because I want their water to feel good, right? So that water, that teaching is really beautiful. So we have to drink minimum 4 liters of water a day. And then what do I put into my body? Foods that are medicine. I'm going to be very mindful of that. What I feed my body is either going to help me or it's going to harm me. So I want to be really healthy and take care of my water and my body and eat foods that are medicine. And then the last one is Minopamachasiwen. That means the good life and our way of life. But what it actually means is it means moving energy, like circular moving energy. Meaning if I want that good life, I have to be active. I have to be active and meet my prayers halfway, meet Creator halfway. So I do that every day. I take good care of myself like that. And when I do that, I'm living that really good life, that healthy, beautiful Minopamachasiwen. And I'm taking really good care of my health. And when I can do that, I'm going to have boundaries around my medicine wheel of what I'll allow in my life and what I won't allow in my life. Who I allow in my life and who I won't allow in my life. Because I want to protect that really beautiful medicine wheel that I built, that I've nurtured and taken care of in myself. And when I can do that and take really good care of my medicine wheel, then I'm happy. That next law, happiness. Finding ways every day to laugh, finding ways every day to find goodness in something, even when things get tough. And, Ivana and I used to work at Marymount and we had gardens. I think we had 6 gardens all together in a greenhouse. And we grew foods that were medicine, and we grew medicines like sage, sweetgrass, tobacco. We had a huge tobacco farm. And we just grew and grew. And at the end of the year, we had our harvest feast. And we had a huge pipe ceremony in the teaching lodge with all the foods that we harvest. And we went through these pipe laws. And remember, I told you when you forget 1 or 2, those are the ones you need to work on the most. So we're smoking our pipe and we're doing these beautiful teachings and having this beautiful fall harvest feast. And I looked at Ivana and I said, I think I forgot one. And she's like, no, because you're good. You did. And I was like, no, because I'm sure I forgot one. And, we finished our pipe ceremony and our feast, and it was so good. We made a spirit plate. We always make a spirit plate. We always feed our ancestors because someone in our bloodline prayed for us to be here today doing what we do. So we take care of them. We have a responsibility. So we made this beautiful spirit plate, and we finished our pipe ceremony. We put the spirit plate out by a tree, with that beautiful tea that we made, and we went on with our day. The next day I get a call from my cousin, and she says, my cousin Joyce, and she says, Raven, I got to tell you something. I dreamt of your mom last night. Yeah, it was so beautiful. She was sitting on a big grandmother rock. And she was covered in ceremony from head to toe, man. She looked good. And she was eating this food. And she was like, oh, she was like, like my daughter and my niece, they're really good at what they're doing. And she was so grateful for this food that we had fed her. And then she looked at my cousin dead in the eye and she says, you tell my girl that the one that she forgot was happiness. And sorry. that was so beautiful because it really touched my heart, because it made me realize that we don't do these things for nothing. You know, when we have a feast, we always feed our ancestors and they come, but they also come to teach us. And one of the things that I forgot to be when my mom and dad passed away was happy. I was in such grief that I didn't know how, you know, I couldn't remember how to be happy. And she reminded me, like, this is what I want for you, my girl, right? Sorry. And I just thought that was so beautiful, because like, even from the spirit world, they still look after us, and but we just have to look after them. So she reminded me that, and I worked on it every day since. Like, I'm pretty happy person. So yeah, that just makes me emotional. And then that beautiful next teaching is generation. And how I understand that beautiful law is, you know, I sit in the center as a beautiful, strong, healthy matriarch. And to my left is 7 generations of my ancestors who are all in the spirit world. And when I look to my right, I see my children and my grandson and my unborn grandchildren and great-grandchildren, all the way like that. And despite all of, you know, 3 generations ago, there was a disruption. My great-grandmother went to residential school. My grandmother went to residential school. My mom went to residential school. And I went to residential school, the last one in Canada. And people don't think that we're this young to be able, that we went to residential school, but that's how not so far away it was. And so there was a beautiful, healthy, vibrant bloodline. And then all of a sudden, a disruption happened, right? And that disruption, it nearly destroyed my family 3 generations ago. But that was about this much compared to our ancestral, powerful, beautiful bloodline that goes on and on and on and on. So as much as I have that much, you know, hurt and trauma and oppression and all of those hard things, the abuses that I've encountered in my life, I have all of the strength of my ancestors within me, right? So I think about that, and my mom always says it takes 7 generations to undo a harm. So when I think about that, my great-grandmother struggled with alcoholism and addiction. My grandmother struggled with alcoholism and addiction. That's what my mom told me, but that's not what I saw. When I was growing up, my kukum was healthy. She was sober. She was happy. That's what she did for us. She changed. She worked on healing herself. So that's 1, 2, 3 generations ago. And then my mom, she said when she got out of residential school, I'm not going to repeat that. I'm going to change that. I'm going to teach my children their culture as much as I can about their language and who they are. So that's 2 generations of healing. And then I'm the 3rd, right? I'm the 3rd generation of healing. And I live my life, a sober life. I live a spiritual life. You know, I work on being the best version of myself, my favorite version of myself every day. And then that's 1, 2, 3. And then my children are the 4th generation, and it looks really good. Hey. And then my grandson, he's only 1 year old, and he sings on a drum, and he shuts his eyes and he sings like how his kukum does and his auntie does. Right? And that's another generation. So that's 1, 2, 3. And then my children and my grandson. So my grandson's grandchildren are going to be really healthy, because that's the work that we did to heal. Hey. So I have a responsibility sitting in the middle, but that generation teaching doesn't just talk about my ancestry and my unborn. It also talks about how I'm related to the plants and animals and Mother Earth, the stars, the moon, our star nation relatives, aliens, all of that stuff. And it's just such a beautiful, beautiful teaching, because I realized that before I came here, Creator told all the plants and animals that we were coming as human beings, and that, you know, that Creator loved us so much that he wanted the plants and animals to provide everything we needed to sustain life. So when I think about that, I make offerings to them. We make a lot of offerings. Hey, Ivana? Yeah, we make offerings. We go put food by a tree. We feed the birds. We feed the animals. And we're always mindful with our offerings. We won't take candy and chocolate, things that harm the animals. We take things that they'll be able to eat. Sometimes we'll go buy bird seed. we'll buy raw meat and feed those ones that are meat eaters, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're related to everything. And another beautiful teaching I have is that, all of these things come from Mother Earth, and the only thing, and my spirit belongs to Creator. So the only thing that I have is my flesh. Okay. So that's my gift. And sometimes when we do our ceremonies, we give a little bit, just a little tiny bit of our flesh, because that's how much we love, our prayers, and we love what we're asking for. So that's generation. And when you're able to work through health, happiness, and generation and know your responsibilities and gifts, you have the ability to be generous and to give back your offerings to Mother Earth, plants and animals, all of that things, but also to give back to the community, right? We go through healing and we work to live our gifts and our responsibilities. And then we have an opportunity to give back, maybe to help another person out of the fire, to help another person out of the darkness. And that's the teaching of generosity. And my mom always said, you can't spoil a child. When they're from 0 to 7, she said, just give them what they want, give them what they ask for, because when you do that generosity with them, they learn kindness. And when they learn kindness, they learn respect for all living things. They're not going to go break a tree branch or pick, something from Mother Earth without loving and respecting Mother Earth. So that's generosity. And I'll get Ivana to talk about compassion, and then we'll go back to respect and quietness.
Yeah, so compassion is the teaching of Gisiwatasuwin. And Gisiwatasuwin, in that word, we use the same word for Gisemonitu. Sorry, my throat is still in healing mode. So in our language, what we identify as creator is Gisemonitu, and Gisemonitu translated in English means the most compassionate, loving being. And there's different types of manituak out there. We have many stories of different manitu, from Mimigwesak, which are the little people, or Kinipik, which are the serpent beings, and all different types, like Benesewak, which are thunder beings. There's different types of manitu. But Gisei Manitu is very specific because that's the one that is so loving and kind and compassionate. And so having that law as one of our sacred laws that we have in terms of that governing structures and systems within our home fires, that teaches us to be a similar way, in a similar aspect towards ourselves and then towards our relatives, to be kind, to be compassionate, to be loving. And a lot of these compassionate teachings are within all of our frameworks. Within our Mikiwa, one of the poles is compassion, Gisiwatasuwin. Even within that sweetgrass, that braid of sweetgrass. So that braid of sweetgrass, it actually represents the umbilical cord. And which is why, as Indigenous peoples, we always braided our hair, because our hair, we believe in terms of hair teachings that when our hair is long, we're more connected to Mother Earth, especially when we wear it down. So when we have those braids, they represent the 3 strands of the umbilical cord that we have when we were babies. And so in that sweetgrass teaching, those 3 strands that make up that braid, one of them is to be compassionate, Gisiwatasuwin. The other one is kindness, and the other one is love. So in terms of our pipe law teachings and our way of life, you'll find a lot of that compassionate, virtue within a lot of the stories that we have. And within that mindfulness as well, which we're going to get into in regards to quietness, there's also a lot of our ceremony practices involve meditation and prayer and contemplation. And in neuroscience, when we practice quietness or mindfulness or any type of meditative states for long periods of times regularly, our prefrontal cortex here, which is responsible for the compassionate site, it strengthens. And the parietal lobe, which is the one that tells you like, I'm separate from that tree over there, the water is on that side, etc., that quiets down, especially when we're in ceremony and prayer. And this compassionate center opens up. And so, back in the old days when our ancestors talked about that relationship and that kinship, wakotowin, which is how we say it in Cree, that kinship that we have with the plants, the animals, the sun, the stars, the moon, etc., each other. That was because they were always practicing that mindfulness and that contemplation and that prayerfulness, and their compassionate sites were thickened. And, so a lot of Indigenous scholars, a lot of elders say in order to heal the brain from trauma, in order to heal from colonization, we need to decolonize those centers within our brain in order to become compassionate again, in order to teach our children and our babies that compassionate teaching and virtue, to sit down with them, to pray with them, to talk to them about the stories of, creation stories, Big Brother, which is what we call him, Wasagichak. I can say Wasagichak right now because there's still snow on the ground, but once that snow disappears, I can't say his name. And to teach them all the other stories of the land, the plants, the animals, how we're related to them, how come we're related to them, how these stories came to be. So that way our babies can learn to be compassionate. And, I always share about my niece. My niece, she's 10 years old. Her name is Nipi. Her name means water in Cree. And she grew up in ceremony with us. I take her to ceremony all the time. We do offerings, we do these teachings. I do these teachings with her as an auntie. And she's very careful in the summertime when she walks around, and she looks at the ground a lot. And one time I asked her, I said, how come you keep looking at the ground? I said, you're not going to know like where it is you're walking if you keep looking at your feet. And she's like, but auntie, I have to like make sure I don't step on the ants. And she's like, I'm scared I'm going to hurt them. And because I was talking to her about that kinship teaching, about that generation teaching of Wakotowin and her responsibility as a human being. So that's that compassion. And when our babies and children are human beings, we learn about that compassion, the other teachings of health, happiness, wakotowin, generation, being generous, being compassionate. Then we learn respect. That's when we could start to respect all of those beautiful relatives we have in our life, all those beautiful relatives that we share this planet with. We can also respect ourselves. We respect ourselves, as Raven said, those boundaries around that medicine wheel that we build and create for ourselves. We can respect our own boundaries in terms of healthy relationships. What it is that I myself, as a young person, will allow in my life as relationships with friends, with a partner, community, whatever that looks like. And then from there, I'm also able to respect other people's boundaries, community boundaries, and then all those kinship circles and ties that we naturally innately have as human beings. So just even going back to my niece, how she was so respectful and really wanted to be careful of not hurting anything. And she's still like that today. She's very compassionate that way. And then the last one is quietness, which we kind of touched on, when we're singing our songs, when we're, gathering in ceremony, when we're learning and having this type of education, ceremony education, we're practicing that quietness. And it's so important to practice quietness because when we're quiet, we're able to listen. We're able to hear and to know and to experience, right? We're able to listen to our bodies. Where does my body hurt right now? What does my body need right now? Oh, I'm feeling pretty tired, so I probably need to rest, right? And part of that quietness, we practice quietness in all of our ceremonies and lodges. In our sweat lodges, we practice quietness when we're praying. The Sundance ceremony, which is like a 4-day ceremony, we're practicing quietness. For myself, my cousin and I, like we regularly meditate. I've been meditating for almost 2 years now, about 40 minutes a day. And, when we're sitting in that quietness, sometimes you're able to gather information. I call them like spiritual downloads. You get like ideas, and, that can help you in your life, or maybe that will help someone else in their life, whatever information comes. So it teaches us to, sit and to be still and to be quiet, and to also know that everything has a turn, that in mother nature, seasons, they come and go, and within those seasons, there's animal migrations, there's plants that grow certain times, like berries, blueberries, strawberries, etc. And there's certain times that as human beings we have to be mindful of when to know to practice quietness during those seasons, because everything takes a turn. And that part of that, the things we struggle with in terms of that unbalance is that as human beings, we're not respecting those things taking their turn. Like we're taking more than what it is that we need. So quietness is a really important virtue within our laws, and especially when we're sitting in contemplation and prayer. So yeah, those are the 7 pipe laws. I'm not sure how much time we have. I can't see the clock.
I think we have like a couple
Oh,
minutes
wow.
maybe to answer some questions.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize that it was that, wow, time just flies.
Yeah. So we can take any questions if you
Yeah.
want. You can raise your hand, or if you want to text in the chat box, that's okay too.
Ladies, you mentioned that you do some work with moms who are involved with CFS. Can you tell us a little bit about how someone would access that, or how do people self-refer, or what are there particular agencies that you work with? I'll mute myself now and let you guys respond.
Right now we're contracting, we do contracts with different agencies. So right now we are doing contract work with Southeast Child and Family Services, and they have us doing the Mikiwat program, which is how to build a healthy home fire and teepee, for your family. And so right now that's what we're doing. We just finished a contract with Sage House on a women's wellness and leadership workshop retreat. And so we did that online for 7 weeks with Sage House women who are mostly sexually exploited. Our women in our Mikiwat program have in some way at some point in their life been involved with domestic violence or have left domestic violent relationships. We do not advertise that because we want to keep our women safe. So we just call it the Mikiwat program. But yeah, we do a lot of contracts with different agencies and different groups of people. So that's how, there's no referral process. If they're within Southeast CFS, then they would be able to receive our services. And so far it's been ongoing. Like we just keep renewing contracts and doing, another cohort, and it just keeps going like that. I hope that helps answer that question.
Yeah, we haven't, we're still we've been doing this work for a while, but in terms of Miteh Atôskê, part of my social work degree is to get everything registered. So that way we're able to open up a site, we're able to be able to apply for grants or funding in some capacity in order to, have this work out in the community. But right now we're kind of going through contracts and being in school full time too. It's like we're kind of going as they come in. But once, we're hoping to open up, to get a registration and to get a site so that we can start to implement, these type of life skills programming, empowerment work to broaden in terms of that community reach, because right now it's just through Southeast CFS or through, a school division, etc. Yeah. but we're working on it.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we've identified is the need for grief and loss work in our communities. And so just recently, I was trained in grief and loss, so I'm now a grief and loss specialist. So that's one of the biggest ones that we're tackling in terms of our community. There's just so much grief, hey? So yeah, we're really
and then
lucky.
utilizing that grief and loss in those modules, but also doing ceremony. So some of like with the Mikiwak program, when the women are done the 15 weeks, we take them into the sweat lodge and we do a cedar bath ceremony with them and alongside of them, just to help them, you know, continue that healing process. And we also mix in ceremony throughout everything that we do as a part of that Indigenous ways of knowing and those methodologies of those natural healing frameworks that we've always had, and then bringing that back, you know, mixing it in. So, yeah.
One of the things that makes Ivana and I really unique is the fact that we were really fortunate to be born into our lodges. We were really fortunate to be brought up in this beautiful way of life since birth. And so we have that like collective history and knowledge that we both, you know, learned from our elders and our cookums and our moms, you know, so, and our uncles, you know, our uncles. So yeah, makes us really unique in that sense that we integrate ceremony into everything. It's, you know, it's how we start everything, and it's the foundation for everything that we do. Can't transmit something that you don't have.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll probably pause there, but I do want to thank both of you so much for your time today. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice as well. I want to thank our guests who've joined us as well. And this could go on and on. I see you had a lot more on that PowerPoint, so I'm looking having you back. But wonderful to hear, and very encouraging and uplifting. And I think after the weekend we've had and the weekend we're about to have with just all this snow coming back at us, it felt very, I'll speak for myself, it felt very encouraging today to hear messages of hope and future. So thank you very much for that.
I just wanted to say that, Joanne, if there's anybody else that has any questions, you have our contact information, and we would be happy to answer those for anyone that didn't get to ask a question in an email, and we'll send replies for you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much.
So.